We need to come together and do one thing: stop participating. And when we do that, the game is over. When we literally say, Monday morning, we're not going to go to work. Imagine if 30 million people didn't go to work Monday. Imagine if 30 million people didn't buy gas on Monday. Imagine if 30 million people went to the bank on Monday and said, I want to withdraw all my money. They can't even give it to all 30 million because only 15% of the cash is available on hand at any given time. The rest is fake zeros and ones. That would collapse the banking system in one day. You see the power in that? You have the power. But we all have the power. But what's keeping us back from doing this? Fear. Oh my God, if I don't go to work, I'm going to get fired. And if they don't participate in it, and I'm the only one that doesn't show up for work, I'm going to lose out, and I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. I'm not going to be able to make my car payment, and so forth and so on. You see the trap they have us in? They have us in this system where we're afraid to work together. Man, we're brothers. We should be, link up. Let's do this together. That's right.
A tax strike is literally the only option that we have left to truly bring change to this country. We cannot rely upon our vote and our elected officials anymore. If you can't see at this point that their only interest is to line their own pockets, then you deserve to die as a slave to the system. I have a question for the American taxpayer. How many years have you worked and watched your hard-earned tax dollars spent on shit you didn't even vote for? Year after year goes by, administration after administration, and it's still the same thing. I don't know about you, but I'm beyond tired. I would rather watch the literal collapse of this corrupt system and everything that would come with that than watch another day go by where one more dollar runs through the hand of these worthless politicians. They don't care about the American people, and it's time we stand up and do something about it peacefully. What's the best way to do that? Hit them where it hurts, their pockets. Every aspect of our lives is taxed. Think about it. They tax us on our paychecks. They tax us on the homes we live in. They tax us on the food we eat and even the cars we drive. Literally every aspect. For what? To allow them to enrich themselves? Laundering our money for causes that we aren't even in support of. This is simple. We voted for accountability and Americans to be put first, period. Do you notice that every time Netanyahu goes to the White House, he receives billions of dollars in our tax money? I don't give a shit what blackmail they have on our politicians. They are not getting one more penny. Don't you see that this is the only way moving forward? Mark my words, bookmark this video. 2026 will go down in the history books where Americans stood up and actually brought change to this country. I'm done making corrupt politicians and foreign leaders rich. It ends here, it ends now.
Welcome to BTE TV. I am Tony Jackson. Before we begin this presentation, I want to share a few thoughts. Some of the discussions you will hear may be controversial, and they may not align with your personal beliefs. But remember, every one of us is searching for the truth about our reality, not just because we really want to know more about Tartaria or we really want to know more about the Illuminati, but because at the deepest level we are all trying to find our way back home to the Father. And I believe through faith in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we will get there. With that in mind, let's explore with open hearts, open minds, and a shared desire for understanding. Here's a Bible verse that really summarizes that sentiment. It's Jeremiah 33:3, and it reads, "Call to me, and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." I want to read one more Bible verse that encourages listening and humility, which are very important for an open mind, and that is James 1:19, and it reads, Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. And before we begin, as always, this is all just for entertainment purposes only. None of this is meant to be taken seriously. And having said all that, let's begin. Okay, all right. I think we are recording. Welcome, Guy Anderson. Thank you for being here today. Glad to see you again. This is going to be part 2 of our conversation last time. So thank you for coming back. Guy Anderson is an author and researcher into Tartaria and the falsification of our history. And this is something that I know a lot of people are talking about, a lot of people are interested in. And Guy, again, thank you for coming back to talk about this very important subject.
Thanks for having me back on.
Okay, so great. So Guy, this time I think most of everyone knows, who you are and what it is that you do. So I think we're just going to jump right into, some of the questions. And just to give you kind of a brief overview, what I would like to accomplish in this interview is to get to the truth of these important subjects. What was the civilization that came before us like? Why are they trying to hide this knowledge from us about the civilization, and what we can expect to come in our future?
Okay. Yeah.
Those are kind of like that's what's on everyone's mind, especially with just the whirlwind of events that have happened, even just in the last 5 years. It seems like something is coming to a head. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I did think that, because it's pretty clear we're in Satan's little season, and a season is a quarter typically. So if the millennial reign is 1,000 years, then a quarter would be 250, by definition. Mm-hmm. And that would suggest that on the 4th of July this year, something significant should happen to mark that. So I think they're ramping things up, and perhaps they're going to go out with a bang.
Yeah, I personally do believe that as well. I think I don't see how things could carry on this way for much longer. Even just looking at what's happening now. So yeah, I do believe that. So Guy, let's kind of get into this, what we kind of touched on last time, this civilization that came before that was called Great Tartary, correct? Is that what it was called?
Well,
on the
people
maps,
call it,
right?
Yeah, but people call it different things. Some maps will say Tartaria, some will say Great Tartaria, Grand Tartaria, Grand Tartary, Great Tartary. It depends on the cartographer, but we just call it Tartaria. Sort of a blanket term, really. But obviously other people call it the Old World, and some people call it the Millennial Reign of Christ. But we're talking about the same period of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yep. And when exactly did this civilization, Tartaria, when did it start, and how did it emerge as a civilization?
Well, it goes back to actually biblical times, Gog Magog. That's how far back it goes. But perhaps more recent, and we're talking, a very long time ago, but more recently, King Solomon would perhaps be the first king that ruled. And then we move into ultimately Genghis Khan. But the period of time really that we're referring to, it goes from actually 0 to 976. Now, 976, because 800 years were added to our timeline at some point in the 1700s or early 1800s, 976 was actually 1776, which is where you can see the millennial reign, 1,000 years, the 1,000-year reign. So that would make this year 1226. So if we take 0 as the starting point, 976 was the end. But for us, the timeline we're on now, that would be 1776, the 4th of July.
Wow. Very, very interesting. And was the United States? It wasn't the United States back then, but was North America part of this empire, this civilization?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was.
Yeah, because it spanned the world. Everywhere was working in this with the same ethos. Everyone was using cymatics and understood frequency. So it was an understanding of sacred geometry and an understanding of frequency and vibration that was almost like a shared blueprint. And in America, it was the Moors. The Moors were the people that actually were building all of these incredible structures, like the White House, Penn Station, the World's Fairs, the Pantheon, and everything. That was the Moors that constructed that, and they were part of what we would, as an umbrella, call the Tartarian Empire. But it consisted of lots of different cultures, but predominantly the landmass itself. We're talking about Russia, Eastern Europe, and Asia, but the ethos travelled everywhere. But the Moors went from North Africa through Europe, particularly Spain and Portugal, where a lot of their architecture you can still see, and then into America.
Wow, interesting. And now, does this tie into the Egyptian pyramids at all, or is that from a completely different? That was a different civilization. Yeah, that was before, right? Was that before?
Yeah, a very, very long time before that. Yeah, we're going back. Really, those pyramids are thousands of years old, thousands and thousands of years old. Nothing like we've been told. And obviously, all we can see in Egypt is, just as an example, I mean, the biggest pyramid in the world is Iran, but you're only seeing the very tip of an incredible structure. That's all we get to see. You know, they are absolutely enormous. They go down underneath that sand, for hundreds of feet. It's a massive structure, almost a city underneath that pyramid.
Yeah, I've heard that. And am I correct that the tops of these pyramids have been removed? The energy harnessing devices or whatever they were actually removed. That's why the tops are flat. Is that correct?
Yeah, they've taken the caps off them. Yeah, because that's what they were doing. They were harnessing energy. I mean, essentially, if you like, the pyramids were they served lots of different purposes, but ultimately, you could consider them to be a huge power station.
Yep. I've definitely heard that, and very interesting. And now, just real quick, Stonehenge. What's your thoughts on Stonehenge? I heard that was built in the 70s. I heard it actually was, and what do you think about that?
I'm where you are. I hear the same things. I've got photographs of it being built, but they may well be photographs of people actually trying to restore it. We know it's a very important fault line that sits on energy. It's on an energy grid. I often thought, and I'm not sure, but I often thought that perhaps all of these megalithic sites line up to stabilize the grid. Because these ley lines, it's like we live on an electric circuit board, and these were stabilizing it, because you can actually line these megalithic sites across the earth. You can line them all up, and so I don't know. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because like you, I've heard that they're relatively new. And also I've heard that they're a lot older than we've been told. And then we've got the mainstream narrative as well. And I often think that if you're given two options, if somebody tells you that actually it's substantially older and somebody else tells you actually it's fake and it's not that old at all, that the truth is probably something entirely different that we haven't considered. And I don't know. Obviously, I've been there several times. I've never felt anything. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And it's not that far away from me. We're talking about an hour and a half from where I live, and I drive past it quite often. But I just don't know. It's not something that I'm particularly into, because most of my mental capacity is taken with Tartaria, and that kind of predates. It's slightly out of my ballpark. I do find it fascinating, but I kind of lean towards it possibly being fake.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
None of us know, do we? I mean, there'll be people watching this that have got very certain opinions on it, but we can't have, can we? Because none of us are in that, we're not high enough up the ladder, up the pyramid of power to have that information. But I'm sorry. I wish that I had an answer, but I have no idea at all really what the age of it is.
No, I appreciate that. And I think you're right. We just no way to actually know. It could have been where they held like human sacrifices, I heard. I mean, druids and stuff like that. It's connected to that. Okay, so I want to also ask you now, and I don't know if we talked about this last time, but there was this this landmass called Terra de Iesu that was on all these old maps, and a lot of the people in this little season, Satan's little season movement, myself included, believe this could have possibly been what the Bible called the camp of the saints, because it was Terra de Iesu, the land of Jesus. And then once the 1700s came, they changed it and it became like unknown land. And then they just called it, the North Pole. And it was this giant icy landmass and all that stuff. And then there's 3 time zones missing right where that place used to be. So what are your thoughts on that? First of all, have you heard of this, that landmass being erased off the maps, and what do you think about that?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you think about it, we're kind of pushed in conspiratorial circles. We're pushed to look at the South Pole, to look at Antarctica, and I think it's a little bit like UFOs. We're told to look up for alien craft, where I think that it's inverted. So I think there's something going on at the North Pole. Now, early maps, as you quite rightly say, early maps actually show it as being the entrance to something. So I think that this might be a portal or the entrance to an inner world. I don't know. But the other thing that's quite interesting is that if you look on old maps, Siberia, northern Russia, used to be called Archangel.
Oh, I never heard that.
Yeah, and there's a connection with the whole top of the northern hemisphere and Hyperborea. So I think we're talking about Hyperborea here.
Oh, okay.
Which is, very sort of mirrors in many ways Atlantis. So there's something going on, and I think Greenland might be the key to us understanding that. There's a lot of interest at the moment with Greenland.
Yes, there is.
I think that's perhaps something to do with it. That's connected. I don't know if that's how you access that area, but I think that we're not, because we're always talking about, as I said a moment ago, we're always talking about the South Pole, we're always talking about Antarctica, what's going on there, with, underground bases, the Nazi operations during the Second World War when they built a base there. And I think the North Pole is actually where we need to be looking, but we can't go there either.
Right.
No one's allowed to fly over it. There's something going on there. And who knows, there may well be a civilization there that, we're not aware of, or certainly we're not aware of. But
right.
It fascinates me. But I think actually we're talking about something that's connected to Hyperborea.
Right. And just to elaborate on that, I had a subscriber tell me that he lives up in that area. He didn't say exactly where. And he said the military massing that's happening there, Chinese, Russia, and the U.S., he said it's incredible. He said they are definitely interested in that area right now. And he sees the military movements that's happening there. And really makes you wonder, like you said, Greenland and all that. Trump wants, to take Greenland, and it does seem to tie into this, biblical revelation where the camp of the saints, they call it, is surrounded by, Satan's army as large as the sands of the sea. So it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. It makes you wonder.
It does. And the other interesting thing is that whether or not people watching this believe that, believe in the Bible or not, as I call them, the parasites do. They definitely do. They are following that script. They're following it verbatim. There's something going on, and they're waiting. They're waiting for it. They're preparing for it. I think they believe that something is going to happen, and they're going to have to fight it. But I think that it doesn't matter what technology they've got, it's going to be nothing compared to what's coming for them. And I do believe that. I think that we are going to see, because for me, the millennial reign, a lot of people think that it hasn't happened yet. But of course, Jesus said that he would return soon. He didn't say he was going to return in 1,000 years' time. He said he was going to return soon. So I believe that the millennial reign has ended, and that actually we're going to see a return. Now, I don't know in what form. Obviously we've got a lot of images of what we believe he looked like and what other people think he looked like, and they differ depending on where you are in the world. But I think that something very, very powerful, perhaps otherworldly, is waiting. And I kind of, like I said earlier on, it would suggest when we're talking about a season that it's a 250-year period. If we're looking at a millennial reign, 1,000 years, and a season's got to be 250 years or thereabouts. Something's got to happen on the 4th of July, but all the research I've got is pointing towards 2032. But the CIA are preparing for an alien invasion in 2027, the return of something or someone. Now, they're saying it's the Anunnaki. Now, this could just be a psyop. We don't know, do we? Again, we don't have access to this kind of information, but there's something big coming. And this is where I think Tony Blair fits into it, who I believe is the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd definitely like to hear more about that. Tony Blair, I in your video yesterday, you discussed him being the Antichrist, and I've heard that too. So the Vatican has a telescope called Lucifer, and it appears that for many decades, at least, they've also been searching for something, signs of something coming. You think that may be related to this, connected to this second coming of whatever Christ, or this big event that they're all preparing for? You think that's what the Vatican's been looking for with that telescope?
I think so, because I think that these, underneath all of this, underneath these sort of parasitical bloodlines, and if you look at, Pepe Orsini, who runs the Vatican, the head of the Jesuit order, these are nefarious characters, and they are doing the devil's work. They're not good people. And it may well be that the people on the front line are benevolent, but the people pulling the strings sat at the back that are running the show are not. And they know something's coming, and it's coming for them. And I think that that's why we're seeing all of these events. I mean, I don't know if you heard on the news, but there were quite a few events on New Year's Eve. There's a most glorious church in Amsterdam burnt to the ground on New Year's Eve. There were quite a few events where, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I think they're panicking. So my guess is, as I said on my monologue yesterday, that these parasites, as I call them, the ones that are really running Satan's little season, I think they're going to ramp things up. I think we're going to have another pandemic. They're spoiling for another war. I think we're going to see, it's like Exodus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it. But I personally think that all of these people involved, these world leaders, and these powerful bloodline families, I think they're all nefarious. I think they're waiting for something to happen, and I think their fear is karma, having to meet their maker and justify what they've done to millions of people, the harm that they've caused. And I think that that's a little bit, in some ways, connected to their desire for immortality. You know, they don't want, they're scared of what happens at the end because they know that they've tricked us. And they're going to have to pay for that. Or at least we hope. You know, that's all we can do, isn't it? None of us really know what happens at the end, but the hope is that karma exists.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And speaking of that, real quick, tell me about Ingersoll, or tell the viewers about Ingersoll Lockwood and what he said on his deathbed about how demons jump from body to body, and then after 7 times they go to some island. Can you elaborate on that?
Not really, no, because that's not something that I've actually looked into. I'm sorry, my sort of research with Ingersoll Lockwood is more into the books that he wrote that were obviously The Adventures of Baron Trump and the connections between that and Agatha, and then the book that he wrote, which was The Last President, which is actually really describing Donald Trump.
Yes. And
I've got some views on that. But no, I mean... Ingersoll Lockwood is a strange character because there are a lot of quotes associated with him. There are the 3 books that he wrote, but they weren't popular while he was alive.
Right.
And some people believe that actually he never existed and he's been created and these books have been made to appear old and kind of, if you like, backdated. So it looked like prophecy with Trump. It's all to do with Trump, Ingersoll Lockwood.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I guess, that thought never crossed my mind. Just to let you know, I just heard this on a channel called Enter the Stars, and I guess he said something on his deathbed about how that the people are demonically possessed and they can transfer to another host 7 times, and then they go to what they believe. They go to some island or something, and I don't have the details on it, but that to your point, that's why they desire immortality, because they're afraid of meeting their creator, and they're desperate to, and now, consciousness transfer into computers. I think they've downloaded their minds into hard drives. So it's because they're running from the inevitable.
Yeah, and I think that's why, if we look at things like vampires, for example, if you look at the story of those, I mean, the Vatican spent a lot of time and money into researching that. It was taken seriously, just a few hundred years ago. And you could even study it at university, you could write a thesis on it. People were really concerned. And the further back you go, the younger the victims were. And there are links to this with, I don't know, we probably can't say the whole word on here, but achrome.
Yeah.
The release of adrenaline. Yeah. There are links to that, because if you're going to have a blood transfusion and the blood that you're being given has an incredible amount of adrenaline within it, then obviously that's going to be far more beneficial to you. So I think there are links to that. And I think that is what we're talking about with immortality, with vampires and so on. I think that it's actually to do with adrenaline and the desire to live for as long as possible. And of course, you've got stories like the Count of Saint Germain. Some people link him to the Wandering Jew, who stopped Jesus while he was carrying the cross to say you shouldn't rest, and obviously he's told he'll never rest until Jesus returns, and so on. So is immortality a thing? But like you quite rightly said, with services available by companies like Clonaid that are using the Lazarus Project to transfer consciousness, they can, like you quite rightly said, just shift it into something digital, no longer actually human. Not that I think these people are technically human anyway, but all of a sudden it's software we're talking about. Right.
Yep. Okay. So, and now getting back to Tartaria, someone asked me, what was the climate like on Earth during that time period of the millennial reign of the Tartarian Empire, was it the same as today? Was there more oxygen? Was everything a lot bigger?
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned oxygen. Yeah, I mean, that's the key to it. So a lot of my research was shared by Michelle Gibson, who's fantastic. I would recommend people check her out. She's been on my channel before, and I've worked with her on a couple of projects. But she believes that the energy grid that we're on was spiked. Everything works at 432 hertz. That's the natural frequency. That's what the Earth and all living matter resonates at. But now it doesn't. It's at 440. We've been stifled. So there is a lower level of oxygen in our atmosphere than there was in the early 1700s and preceding that. Everything grew bigger. And that's why we'll see these enormous trees that we don't grow anymore. And a lot of we'd be told by the official narrative as being natural rock formations are actually tree stumps. And some volcanoes that they believe are no longer active are giant tree stumps. So we're starting to see a lot of those come out now, and people were growing vegetables and produce to a much larger extent, and we were also using electroculture, so putting copper framework around, which a lot of people do now. They do it in Holland actually still. So if you put if you got some copper, almost like welding rods, if you can picture those in your mind, very thin copper wire, but rigid enough to be able to make a frame. Just if you just get a few copper, I'm trying to get the word out, kind of copper rods, very thin copper rods. Yeah. If you got a few of those and just bend them over a plant. So I'd urge anybody to try this. If there's anyone out there that's got green fingers, buy two small plants, get reasonably large, oversized pots for them, and just bend over 2 copper rods over one and leave the other one and watch.
Yeah.
So they understood electroculture, and yes, the higher oxygen level enabled us to be a lot larger too, hence these huge oversized doors.
Yeah, interesting. And I did try I got some copper wire and wrapped it around some wooden stakes and put that in my garden. And it's tough with the chemtrails to really know if it worked. So now I have a greenhouse, but I've heard that. And is there a specific depth that the copper should be in the ground? Is there I
don't know. I don't know. Okay. It's not something I've tried, but I am aware of people that mass produce tulips in Amsterdam have been using it for some time, but it's not something I've tried. And simply because I live on a farm, and I'm just surrounded by fields that sheep graze in. I don't have anywhere to, I could dig a piece of my garden up, but we're only renting. We're actually going to buy land. We're looking to buy land in May, June this year.
Oh.
So when we do that, we're going to be getting involved in that a lot more. But actually, I'm cheating. I know somebody who's a bit of an expert on it, and they're going to come and help us. So, it's not something that I've actually tried myself, but this time next year, hopefully I'll be a little bit more wiser. Right. So I don't know the depth that it needs to go in, but from what little I know, it needs to be in line with the roots.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's not just, obviously there's an awful lot going on underneath.
Yeah.
You need to be protecting the whole thing, because what that's doing is that's actually shielding the entire plant from the incorrect frequency EMF and so on. It's shielding the whole thing. But as you quite rightly said, with chemtrails, with the heavy metals that are in the chemtrails, we've got that to contend with. So polytunnels or a greenhouse, and obviously using water that's been filtered or deionized is going to make a huge difference.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, that's a great knowledge to have, especially for, like you said, people that have gardens.
But yeah, the sole purpose, I think, of everybody that lived during that period was enlightenment, was to become more knowledgeable, to become wiser. And there was a huge emphasis on healing as well, because you could go into a building, a cathedral, for example, or cathedral as they're now called, and you could take pets inside those, or you could take them into a Tiergarten, and your pets could walk around there, and everything was resonating and vibrating. And the pipe organs at 432 were balancing people's internal organs. So there seems to be a complete reversal since the end of Tartaria, where we are now sort of subjected to being poisoned from every different direction, the very air that we breathe, the water that we drink, and the frequency that everything operates in is incorrect. And Rockefeller standardized that to 440. So it's a complete inversion of how we live today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there's also certain buildings that did not have kitchens or bathrooms. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, the concept of having 3 meals a day is relatively new. And actually, there's nothing to suggest that we do need to do that. You kind of eat when you're hungry. But obviously, the food we get today doesn't carry typically the same nutritional value. And if you look at, obviously, in Genesis, we're told to eat from the trees and shrubs and ground, and that the meat is something we don't touch. I mean, that's what Adam's told. So it's very, very strange how we've been pushed to eat certain things. Now we're obviously being subjected to heavily processed food that does us no good at all, and you have to eat an incredible amount of it to actually feel full. Back then, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that they didn't eat, or certainly didn't eat like we do. I'm talking they may have snacked berries, nuts, that kind of thing. And obviously, water as well, the way in which they took water in. The best way to take water in, structured water, is through fruit, or things like cucumbers, fruit and vegetables that contain a high element of water. That's actually how we're supposed to take in water, not by drinking it from the tap or from a bottle. The Breatharians were part of the Tartarian Empire, and Breatharians actually receive everything they need through sunlight. They don't eat. Now, I was a little bit on the fence with this. I couldn't really get my head around it, so I started looking into it. And I've written a little bit about it in Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids about how it works. The darker your skin, the easier it is. And a lot of people will have had that feeling when it's extremely hot and someone says to them, do you fancy something to eat? They say, it's too hot to eat. I'm too hot. It's too hot to eat. The hotter it is, the harder it is to actually sit there and consume huge quantities of food. It was warmer. The climate was better. The atmosphere was different. We just didn't need to eat to the same extent that we do now. And the more I looked into breatharianism, the more it started to make sense, because ultimately you're acting like a plant or a tree. You're able to grow a huge colossal size without actually eating. You're taking all the nutrients you need from your environment. And then I mentioned it to my brother, and he didn't know. He's obviously on board with Tartaria and he understands everything that I research. But at the time, he didn't know I was looking into the Breatharians. And when I mentioned it to him, his girlfriend, who's Russian, said, I practice Breatharianism. She goes 3 months every year without eating. 3 months.
Wow.
Mm.
And
now they live in Tenerife. It's nice and hot there, but she will hike as well, and she goes. She travels all over the world, but she will spend 3 months of the year not eating. And there's a gentleman I met who runs a huge festival here, a freedom festival called Shine, and his name's Eli, and he's the organizer. It's every summer. He has also done exactly the same thing. He will go 3 months without eating.
Wow.
Now, I daren't try that. But, fasting, we know fasting is very good for us.
Yes.
But this is different. This is actually relying on everything around you. And he said you've got to get past the first 7 days.
Interesting. And what sustains them?
Pardon?
The sunlight?
Sun.
Mm.
It is the sun. You need to be in a position where you have direct sunlight constantly. Obviously not at night when you go to sleep, but you need direct sunlight.
Very interesting.
But the darker your skin, the more effective it is. So for me, I look like I've fallen in a bottle of Tipex.
Uh-huh.
It's not going to be as easy for me to achieve that. And after 2 or 3 days, I start to get sort of headaches and things. And people say that you've got to get past that. But I can't, because I'm trying to concentrate, with what I do. I'm always writing or researching. But I'm going to slow down this year and give it another go.
I want to get back to the breatharians. Now, were these breatharians, were they human? Were they spiritual beings? Or
They're human.
They were humans.
Yeah, I mean, we say human. I mean, that's our assumption, because there are, all we know is that they were in some cases a lot taller than us, but in other cases are considerably smaller. So people came in all different shapes and sizes then. And if you look online, if you type in giants 1800s, then you'll start to see lots of photographs. They're available all over the internet, of people that aren't suffering from giantism. This isn't genetic mutation. These are people that are absolutely enormous. And even in the Second World War, there were people fighting, certainly on the German side, that were sort of, 7 feet tall. And there are photographs of a couple actually being arrested that are quite popular online. So people grew bigger, but, I'm only 5'8". Perhaps I would have been average height, but there would have been people almost twice my size and half my size too. And that wasn't unusual. But now, of course, that it appears that they were killed off. The ones that certainly stayed above surface were killed off. A lot of people believe that they fled. Some went underground. Some may have gone beyond the ice wall. Now, I don't know if there is anything beyond the ice wall or not. I haven't flown there. I haven't flown over it. I haven't visited. But I can't help thinking that this landmass we're on is a lot bigger than we've been told. But a lot of people do believe, and I've read the diary, actually, of the daughter of someone who actually claims to have crossed the ice wall and gone through and found more continents there. And the first place he went was full of giants, and they fled in the 1700s. They got out when everything was happening because they were the ones that were being targeted first. They needed to get rid of anybody that didn't fit their narrative, and they were targeted. Now, whether or not this is true, none of us know. But certainly if you look online at the images of these giant people, you can see that we're not looking at someone that has a deformity or died like Robert Percy Wadlow, that died quite young, due to his abnormal, if you like, size. These were people that, lived, a normal life, but just significantly taller, and not just one or two, hundreds of them. You can search these images and you'll just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, and there was a book that came out, I don't know when, but it was an old book, and they just say that it was just kind of like a fairy tale, but it was something about the smoke god. I actually have it. I don't remember the title. And it was about a guy who found the underworld, basically, and
Yeah.
And all these giant beings.
Mm-hmm.
And some people say, no, that was his diary of his journey. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and it's called the Smoky something, isn't it? It's gone.
Yeah.
Smoky, yeah. This will come back to us in about an hour's time, won't it? The Smoky, yeah. And do you know that the more I've looked into it, and that the further I've dug, the more convinced I am that when someone tells me something is a mythological story or a mythological beast or creature, that actually it isn't at all. They just don't want things to fit that don't fit their narrative. And mermaids would be a classic example. How can you have stories of mermaids shared by cultures that never met, that are separated by thousands and thousands of miles, that are drawing maps and depictions of these mermaid or mermans, mermaids, these creatures, these beings? They're drawing the same thing at the same time. They're also telling the same story about giants. Lovelock Caves is a good example. This is being shared by groups of people that never actually communicated with each other across the world, everywhere. Now, they can't all be imagining the same story at the same time. So I think we've really been tricked into what went before. I mean, Adam, how old was Adam? Tall was Adam in the Bible? And how long in the Old Testament were people living for?
Yeah.
Hundreds of years. And how tall was Adam supposed to be? Some people claim he was, we're talking like, incredibly tall.
Yeah.
There are some claims that we're talking sort of 200 feet in some cases, and David and Goliath is another good example of that. There are stories of people that just don't fit with today's, narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. The other one is the Marco Polo. I was looking that up. I think I bought it. It hasn't come yet because I was so fascinated by it. And he encountered some incredible creatures and, beings that we now think are mythical. And if you look online, it says he was delusional. Well, Marco Polo wrote about things, but he was just delusional. They're calling him delusional. But like you said, it's just because it doesn't fit the narrative. I wanted to ask you, the maps, a lot of the old maps, there's little drawings of sea monsters and mermaids. And why would they put those things on there just for fun? Do you think they were actually like marking locations of where these things existed? They would have giants, they'd have
I do.
Dragons. Do you think they were like actually pointing out that these creatures were spotted in those places?
It's funny because I've actually got some notes. I've got a board next to me, one of those cork boards, pin board that you stick, these little pins in. And one of them actually is ancient Mesopotamia. They called them the Apkallu. And they were beings emerged from the sea, half fish, half human. They taught us writing, maths, agriculture, and law. They came from the sea, and that is in Mesopotamia. We're talking, 4,000 years old. Sea gods that lived amongst us, the Dagon, obviously Poseidon, and mer beings, mermaids and mermen across Europe. In Greece, they were called the Sirens. They were called Selkies in Celtic mythology. They're called the Selkies. And in West Africa, Mamiwata. Intelligent, seductive, sometimes benevolent, considered to be observers, judges and enforcers after great resets. So, it's funny, isn't it? I've been looking about this. So 3000 BCE in Samaria, they're talking about these Apkallu, beings emerged from the sea, half fish, half human, taught writing, maths, agriculture, and law.
Wow, that's
they can't all be all making stuff up. I mean, we're talking to these places are quite far apart. And at a very similar time, they're telling similar stories. And there are a lot of cultures that say that these sort of otherworldly beings appeared from the water after the Great Flood.
Yeah, no, I believe there's truth behind at least a lot of those fairy tales and myths, because it just doesn't come out of nowhere. And like you said, when it's corroborated between different cultures that didn't even know each other, that's some pretty strong evidence that it was real.
Marco Polo, he talked about dogmen as well. Men that had dog heads. And then there were the blemmies, where they didn't have a head and their actual eye, their head was in their chest. And then I can't remember the other ones, but they had one big giant foot. And the foot was enormous. And then when it was hot, they would lie on their backs and put the foot over their head to shield them from the sun. And Marco Polo talked about all of these. But it wasn't just him. Other people were talking about him, and they do appear on maps too. But the blemmies is a good one, and the dogmen. Lot of information online about those. Oh yeah.
My channel started as a Bigfoot research. I was going into the Bridgewater Triangle, which is in southeast Massachusetts, and me and my friend, and I had a giant rock thrown at me in the middle. We were way off trail, and all of a sudden this massive rock the size of a football, boom, and rolls. And I called out to my friend, who was like a quarter of a mile away, "Did you just throw a rock?" And he's like, "What?" And I saw the tree structures deep in the woods. I don't know if it was Bigfoot making them, but what do you think about Bigfoot? How is that? What do you? I don't think we've ever discussed that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm with you, totally with you. And what's interesting is, it seems to be more in America where these stories are, and it's interesting because someone told me a few years ago now that there were certain national parks in America that no longer allowed dogs. And I wonder if it's because dogs can sense things, hear things, smell things that we just can't, and that they can see, something that we can't quite see, and they certainly appear to be able to sense things. And I wonder if that's why. And of course, there would be occasions where dogs are going to be walked off the leash, and they're going to sort of run after things that, will disappear and find things. And I wondered if that was why that all of a sudden that more sightings had occurred and dogs were now not allowed in certain national parks. And I wondered if there was a connection there. And they've cordoned off some, haven't they? There are some where you can't go into certain areas. They're restricted. Yeah. And there was some really interesting footage that came out. I think it kind of went viral on TikTok, where this man had seen something walking along the top of what appeared to be a ridge, or a very, very high up sort of mountain ridge, kind of hillside. And he filmed it. And he went back the next day and tried to drive up there, and he was approached by government. Yeah, and then he disappeared. Yep. He disappeared, and no one's heard from him since.
He's died. No, he died. A couple
he did
months,
die, did he?
Yes, a couple months after that, and he was young. Andrew, his name was Andrew, I think. Andrew, I want to say not Dawson, but I did a video about it. A couple months later, obituary came out. Now we don't know if he really died or they. And you saw he made that video saying, "I made it all up," but he's like nervously looking at someone while he's saying it. And then his final video, he said, "I didn't make it up. It's all real, and they're after me," basically.
Yeah, so, I saw him getting approached when he went up there to take a closer look. Yeah. But so do they know? Did they say how he died? So I'm guessing he committed suicide or had a heart attack or an aneurysm.
They did not say how he died.
Because it's normally, isn't it? Normally they'll say they committed suicide, or the odd person has a heart attack, heart failure, or an aneurysm. They seem to be the three most popular. Right.
So that brings us to the question: why are they covering up it's like UFOs. People are seeing UFOs, and for years they said, "Oh no, you're all crazy." Why don't they want us to know that there's these creatures out in the woods? You know what I mean? What is the motive behind trying to hide what the evidence, which is so clearly visible to so many people? We've got thousands of hours of footage of Bigfoot, dogmen. But why do you think they're trying to? Is that because it ties into or doesn't fit their narrative, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think exactly that. It doesn't fit the narrative. If you were, I don't know. But if you were stood in the middle of a field and a UFO craft landed in front of you, and these aliens come out and they tell you that they've been coming backwards and forwards here for millions of years, that we are the seventh civilization, which apparently that's what we are, the seventh civilization to call this earth our home. Well, that throws everything that we've been told out the window. And if what they say about the Anunnaki is true, if that the Sumerian texts are correct, and that we were created then as a slave race, and it certainly feels like we're a bloody slave race now, doesn't it? But what we do is seem to pay taxes and prop up these parasitical people who've never done a day's work in their life, and we just pump money into them. If we had it confirmed that we were built, we were created, and that we are the seventh civilization to live here, and that people have been that from all different shapes and sizes, greys, reptile, all of these people walk amongst us and always have, and they've been here forever. Well, that's just throwing the Bible out the window. And along with it, Darwin's theory of evolution is completely squashed, which I don't believe in anyway. I do believe that we were created. I believe the story in the Old Testament. But that throws Darwinism out of the window. And so you imagine if everybody in the world stood up tomorrow and said, everything we've been told about how we got here and why we're here is a lie. Well, you've got anarchy.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is none of us know. And as I said earlier on, people have got very strong views on what they believe to be fact, but it isn't fact. It is just an opinion. And we don't know because so much has been hidden from us. But all I think is if we woke up tomorrow and everything that we knew was turned upside down, and it turns out that the story of the Anunnaki is true, and that alien races live here, and that there are greys here working in underground bases with the deep state, sharing information on technology. Well, not only would we then think, well, we've been told to look up in the sky to look for UFOs, they're already bloody here, but we've been here a lot longer than we've been told to. And somewhere there's something or a group of some things in charge. And I bet they don't look like us. So it throws everything in the bin. So if you took something that you'd believed firmly and lived by for the last 50 years and destroyed it in a matter of seconds, there'll be people out there that believe they've got nothing to live for and nothing matters. That there is no heaven or hell, that there is no price to pay for doing awful things to other people. I mean, the message of the Bible, as far as I can understand, the overriding message of it all is love. It's love for each other. And that's why we're not supposed to judge each other. We're told only God can judge. That's why we're not supposed to put nasty comments on posts if we're preaching the word or sharing or spreading the word of God. Then the last thing that we're going to do, if we believe what we're saying, is say something unpleasant to someone. Well, that's gone out the window. You can be as nasty as you like to everybody. There's no consequence. So I think it's control. They don't want us to know the truth about anything at all, because to control, and this isn't a saying from me, this actually comes from Orson Welles. To control somebody's past is to control their future. And they control every aspect of our lives. Well, I think we live a lie. I don't think we really understand why we're here. I don't think we are aware that we have a connection to the Creator, a very strong connection that they've been trying to sever for forever. And they don't have that, and we do. And I think that we're being tricked. And with regard to why would they get rid of Tartaria or elements of it, one of the biggest things about Tartaria would have to be free energy. Why would you want people, and of course the frequency with healing, and Royal Raymond Rife and Nikola Tesla worked on frequency healing, and you can buy a Rife machine or a Tesla machine today. People that have cancer will sometimes look at taking that route instead. and have had incredible results. But of course, these are debunked, and the people that sell them or try and invent them often meet tragic ends. A nation of people that are unaware of their true potential and their past, and are kept in a state where they're never actually fully healthy. Well, there's money to be made in that. And also, it's easier to control people that are slightly subdued and weakened. If everybody realised their full potential of what we're capable of, and that we have this connection to the Creator that they don't have, that we can actually all unite, spiritually unite, and manifest whatever we want, then we would take them out overnight, these nefarious people. And I think that it's suppression. We're being suppressed, subdued, poisoned, and there's money to be made in it too. You know, pharmaceutical companies make an awful lot of money by keeping us ill, not curing the problem, but perhaps masking the symptoms. And, people have made lots and lots of money through our pain and suffering, and war as well. You know, if you go to war, the only people that benefit are companies like Lockheed Martin. You know, it's not the people on the ground. And, you know, and I like the analogy that fighting for peace is a little bit like having sex for virginity. You know, you don't fight for peace.
Yeah.
You know, it's a parody.
Yep.
So, so that's what I think ultimately. It's all about control and greed and power.
Yep. If we know that what they've told us is wrong, people will start to question everything. And I think that's starting to happen. I don't know if you've seen lately, is this talk of, in the United States anyway, that people are saying that they're not going to pay their taxes because why would I continue to fund my own destruction, or funding all these other countries? They're sending more money to, I don't want to say the name of the country in the Middle East, but Trump just gave more money to them, and we can't even pay our rent. We can't afford food, yet we're giving but we're funding all these other countries and all these wars, and there is it's going viral. People are making videos saying, "I'm done. I'm not going to pay," because we all stop paying. We all don't show up to work. It'll end.
Absolutely. And if you imagine if everybody decided to take a stand on Monday morning and said, today, none of us are going to work, or we all said, okay, today we're all going to boycott a particular shop, or none of us are going to turn the TV on or use social media, we could change the world, and they can't go out and arrest us all. And of course, there's no law saying you have to pay tax. It's an assumption. There's no actual law saying it is against the law to not. It's a criminal offence not to pay tax. That doesn't exist. And I think more people in America, they call it the straw man, and more people are doing that. It's something that I've dabbled in. We have council tax here. Every month you get a bill, and it's about the equivalent here would be about $300 a month. And what I'm paying for there is street lighting, which I don't have. The roads being repaired. They haven't repaired the roads ever here. They're absolutely ruined. There are potholes everywhere. The police, well, they don't come out, if you call them. And my rubbish to be collected every week. And some weeks they forget. So I'm paying an equivalent of $300 a month to occasionally have my bins collected. So one year I decided to challenge them on it. And I did, and I didn't pay it. And I argued with it, and they couldn't do anything about it. And then we moved to a different county, and I tried it again, and they were a little bit more heavy-handed. And my wife said, I can't go through this again. It was, the threat of people coming to the door and bailiffs and so on. I'm not in the right place for you to be doing this again. But so what I did instead was I didn't pay for the water or the electricity.
Oh.
Because I'm renting a meter. So my argument was that electricity meter I have here, I'm renting it from you. I know I'm not actually paying for the electricity, because I've read the small print. I know I'm actually just paying a rental fee for the meter itself.
Oh.
For you to be charging me the rental fee on that meter, I need you to provide me with proof that you supplied and installed it. Otherwise, you're charging me to rent something that doesn't belong to you. They couldn't do it. None of them can do it. So that was that. So you can get your electricity meter removed, get your friendly electrician to come and install one that they've bought from a store, and then you're not renting your meter from anyone.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and the water, well, that's a basic human right. They can't cut it off. So I don't pay for a television license. I don't pay for water. I've managed to get out of electricity and also paying the local rates as well.
Wow.
But I'm going to ramp that up probably later on this year. I'm going to start looking at my I might get a credit card and clock that up and then not pay it.
Well, good for you.
There are ways around it.
Yeah. I mean, I think we need to start thinking like that.
You got to play them at their own game.
Because, and they control us through fear of death and jail. Is that right? Fear of imprisonment, fear of death.
Death and taxes, we call it here. But yeah.
If we're no longer afraid of those things, then
yes,
they lose all their power instantly.
And they're not talking to you either. They're talking to a dead legal fiction.
Yep.
And that's why when here, I don't know what it's like there, but whenever we get something from an official company, like a bank, an insurance company, or the government or the police, your name will appear in full capital letters. And that's because it isn't you. And here the council, they can't send you an invoice. They have to send you a demand because they can't invoice a member of the public because they're a private corporation. People think that they're not, that the government is just this sort of almost trust that we're all supporting financially. They're not. They are a corporation. Yeah. And I traced R1, Devon, Mid-Devon Council. I traced it. It took me some time. I traced it all the way back to being actually ultimately owned by a construction company who happened to get all the contracts here for any local government building work.
Wow. Interesting.
Very, very clever. And the police, of course, they're a corporation. They don't work for you. They are employees of a company wearing scary uniforms.
Yep.
They've got no authority over you whatsoever.
Yeah. And there's a lot about the common law versus statutory law. Common law is the law of the land, but they switched that at some point, and we're now under the law of the sea. We're lost at sea, right? That's
maritime. Yeah,
that's why they don't. The Constitution, they just walk right over it.
And the interesting thing with that is the people that introduced maritime law were the Phoenicians, and the Phoenicians morphed into the Jesuits. They've been running everything since the very start.
Yeah, they're behind everything. Yeah. That's definitely very interesting stuff. And again, it's all relevant. I mean, right? This everything we're talking about, it's all connected. It's all this massive cover up, right? There's hide our history so that we don't know who we are, so that we blindly follow our elected officials, not realizing that they are just, like you said, they're parasites. They're like leeches, like sucking us dry. We go to work every day, and then all of our money goes to them. Religious, right? We're just like slaves. We're like in a slave mine.
It is very cleverly done, because if you look at your two main political parties, you have red and blue. They're always red and blue, the two main political parties. That's their colours. If you look at a traditional magnet, the one that looks like a horseshoe, you've got a negative and a positive. One's red and one's blue. Mm-hmm. You go to a polling station to vote. Mm-hmm. And then you put someone in power. It's all to do with energy. Everything is to do with energy. It's like we are a loosh farm that all they are interested in is taking our energy. And if they can hurt us financially, that's brilliant. If they can make us ill, that's even better. And it's all to do with taking our energy away from us. And that is why when you go to court, if you've committed an offence, which often doesn't involve offending anybody at all, you are charged and placed in a cell.
Wow.
We are just seen as energy. That's all we are to them. Yeah. And they want to zap it.
Yeah. And earlier we were talking about the ley lines and how basically we live on a giant electric grid, right? That these buildings are built in specific locations. I know there's a lot of information on where like Trump Tower is you can draw a line and it connects right to some, ancient building, and it is on a grid, right? Everything's on an electric grid. So very, very interesting. Now, are there other historical figures like Genghis Khan that have been misrepresented to us throughout history? Like, I don't want to say the guy from Germany, right? We got to be careful, right? There's certain things we can't say, but was he different than what they've portrayed? Was he possibly I don't want to say a hero, but right? What?
Yeah, see, I thought he was. You see, like everybody else, I grew up being told that there was a good guy and a bad guy, good cop, bad cop, cowboys and Indians. That's what I believed for most of my life. And then I started doing some digging, and when I started looking at how characters have been inverted through history, and then I started looking at some correctly translated speeches. Not the ones that we heard at school or on documentaries and films, but actually correctly translated. I started to believe that actually he was the good guy, and everything that we'd been told was a lie, and that was a difficult conversation to have at times with my mother, because my mother's Jewish. And so, there are certain subjects you can't go. I mean, we've got it all going on here. My mother's Jewish, my dad's Roman Catholic, and my wife's Muslim.
Wow.
So, and my son has just got married, and his wife's Tamil.
Oh.
So we're a real mixed bag here.
Yeah.
Which is what we're supposed to be, I think, aren't we? Supposed to love and accept everybody.
Yeah.
And regardless of their beliefs and views, we accept everybody for what they believe and agree to disagree, and kind of, I find it all quite interesting. But anyway, it's a difficult conversation to have, certainly on my mother's side of the family, when I do occasionally have it with them. And then I started digging a little bit more. I mean, and I traced him to, and this isn't just me, lots of people have got this information out there and put it out there. He was a Rothschild.
He was. Okay.
Yeah. But worse than that, so was Winston Churchill.
I'm not surprised at all.
They're cousins.
Okay.
And they were best friends.
Wow. I'm not surprised.
One goal, and that was to completely remove architecture and what remained of the population of Tartaria. That's why that's why Russia was dragged into it. That is why Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, because they were still running with free energy. So Manchuria as well. That's why Manchuria was so important, still operating as Tartarian. And so a lot of the people that were rounded up, if you dig a little bit further back, a lot of the people that were rounded up were what they called refugees, people that were nomads that had come from other places. These were Tartarian. It was the last go at wiping out certain groups of people that were carrying pure bloodline. And that is what they were looking for, this obsession with the Aryan race. The Aryans were Scythians, and Aryan means lordly. These were high priests that were carrying sacred geometry. That was why they were constantly obsessed with, what was going on, in the Himalayas. The entrance allegedly to Shambhala. That is what they wanted. They wanted this knowledge, and they were prepared to remove millions of people that were in the way. They wanted to completely reset. So between them all, they got rid of certain parts of the world. And then, of course, by staging a fake bombing at Pearl Harbor, they then had justification to go and remove certain architecture on those two islands and drag Japan into it. And Russia were relatively neutral to start with, and they were offered Manchuria, and that brought them into the war. So it's very interesting the more you dig into it. But they were kissing cousins, as I call them. It's a joke. And then obviously he went through Operation Paperclip to Argentina, and he died in a car accident, I believe, in 1957. But it's his children that are interesting. I don't want to say too much on here because I don't want to cause a problem for your channel, and I don't know how open-minded everybody that's watching this is, because some people are very closed off and have blinkers, and some people will listen to everything and take it on board or dismiss it, but they'll listen, and it's a difficult one. But I did put a blog on my website about who his descendants are, and that came from an FBI document that was leaked. Now I'll tell you if you want to know.
Well, I think I've heard some things too, but go ahead.
Oh, so you already know Barack Obama is his grandson.
Oh no!
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, Stanley Ann Dunham. His mother is Eva Braun, and his daughter, and that's the grandson. And Angela Merkel.
I heard Angela Merkel.
Theresa May. Did you know about Theresa May, former British Prime Minister?
No.
Yeah, that's the other daughter. Yeah. He had four daughters. One became whose name's completely gone. She was the first female president of Lithuania, and she made some significant changes while she was in power. So basically, it's what by putting those people in place at the same time. And if you ever look online at images of Angela Merkel, Theresa May, and Barack Obama together, just watch how they greet each other. It's a hug and a kiss. Mm. It's not world leaders meeting and shaking hands. It's auntie and nephew. Wow. And it's painstakingly obvious when you see it. So I actually put all of the information down on my latest blog on my website, and it came from. I get quite a bit of information sent to me. Sometimes it's anonymous, and this was an FBI document, and it is the Fourth Reich. It was putting those four people in positions of power at exactly the same time.
Yep. So they were all working together. We're talking about World War II. All of the countries involved made it seem just like they're doing now. They pretend they're at war with each other, and it's really because they're hiding something, like you said, architecture, artifacts, right? Completing the erasing of the civilization before, so that we would have no idea who we are. And that all makes sense.
That they do not want anybody wandering around talking about the millennial reign of Christ. They don't want anybody knowing that actually happened. Yeah,
I get that feeling too. Now, Donald Trump is German. He's German, right? His last name used to be, is it Drumpf? Right? It used to be Drumpf. I heard that he may be even related to that person.
Yes. He's also a Rothschild. And if you look into Donald Trump, when he was financially bailed out, when he was literally bankrupt, just look at who bailed him out.
Yeah. It was
the Rothschilds. Yeah. He's on his mother's side, the Rothschild family, though.
Now, I did hear that that figure from Germany kicked the Rothschilds out of his country. Was that just a cover story?
Yeah. And this is all to do with the Balfour Treaty. Yeah, it's all to do with being given a big lump of land and that doesn't belong to them. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
In the Middle East, yeah.
Very interesting. Now, I have another question. We're going to just kind of pivot a little bit back to the end of this this Tartaria. So was it 1,000 years? And then the little season began, as we think, and that was the beginning of the efforts to erase it. Now, you've heard of the mud flood, I'm sure. When there was something that happened that just added, 10, 20 feet of mud, covered all the, or more. Did that happen at the end of the Tartarian civilization? And was that done by, Satan or the parasites? Or can you just talk a little bit about how this ended, how that civilization was ended?
Yeah, so this is where Michelle Gibson comes in. That's where her work really has focused for some time. They spiked the grid, the ley lines, the energy grid, the circuit board, that was spiked. Now, some people believe that they also used direct energy weapons. If you look at what happened in the Napoleonic Wars in Moscow in 1812, the temperatures there were reached when they firebombed it, when they burnt Moscow down, 1,000 degrees. Wood doesn't burn at 1,000 degrees. It looks like some sort of plasma event, maybe something atomic, maybe a direct energy weapon. They were using technology that we just don't have now, almost like carpet bombing. Some people believe that was being operated from airships, that these things were being actually fired from airships. Others believe that it was a combination of that and spiking the grid, and that caused mud floods. America has one of the best examples of actually that taking place, and that would be the New Madrid event that took place. I think that was the same year. I think that was 1811, 1812, the same year as Napoleon's comet, which looks like an actual direct energy weapon. The same year that we had the Moscow melt.
Yeah.
All happened at the same time, 1811 into 1812. So if they look at the New Madrid event, if anybody's interested, the event of New Madrid, everything melted. Everything was covered in layers and layers of mud. It's quite well documented. And it actually got to the point where the Mississippi changed direction. Metallic objects were flying across the air, sticking to each other. Wild animals were trying to gain shelter inside people's homes, trying to come in because they were so scared. And this happened everywhere, but New Madrid is perhaps the most well documented one of all. So yeah, they that's what caused these mud floods.
So the Tartarian Empire ended, and that's when, if you look at the Bible and what it says about Satan being, loosed from his prison, it would make sense that all of a sudden all these events happened. And, was it fallen angel? Where did they get this directed energy technology back then? Was it from, demonic, beings, or, was Satan's minions? What do you think where that came from?
Well, we don't know, but all we know is that this is technology that we are seeing used again now. So I think that it's something that goes back a very, very long way. I think that a lot of this has been suppressed. I'm not saying is it demonic? I suppose in biblical terms it is, because we're talking about the same people. It's just if you're coming from it from a religious aspect, you would see them as people that are working for Satan ultimately. Mm-hmm. And from a sort of a scientific point of view, you would see these people as just vile, awful, nefarious, nasty people. They're probably both. I have no doubt that they worship Satan, that they're Satanists, that they're worshipping the occult. But yes, this technology, I think, has been around for a very, very long time. I mean, if you look at the bent pyramid in Egypt, that's scorched, and they still find nuclear glass there all the time. People are finding nuclear glass there. Now, you do need, a nuclear event to cause that glass to actually be present. So I think we've been nuked a few times. I think that that's happened, numerous times since the beginning of, civilization, if you like. I think that they've always had that technology. I think the deep state possess a lot of this technology, and perhaps alter it, tweak it, perfect it, use it to cause fires and floods and all sorts of, and quakes. And I think they've been doing that for some time. And I think they also, have the technology to manipulate the weather too. I think this is all part of it. It's all connected to frequency, ultimately, I believe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the HARP program, they're using that to create weather events and literally move hurricanes, like controlling them the direction they go in. Yeah, and it's absolutely horrific. It's unforgivable what they're doing. It's just terrible. And so many people suffer needlessly for what? Land grabs, for population control. It's just it's pure evil. The intent behind it is simply just pure evil. So Guy, we've been going now for a while. I just wanted to, before we leave, just real quick predictions for 2026.
Yeah, well, a very, very senior virologist in Australia told me that we're going to have another pandemic, that they're going to target children. And again, it will be, a fake outbreak. And the main role of it being actually to encourage the vaccination of young children. And then obviously giving them certain metals and so on that will react with 5G, and that they're going to crank that up, perhaps spring, maybe going into as far as May. They're going to crank it up then. And that does align with what I'm hearing. The health service here, the National Health Service, every 15 minutes are on the news, on the radio stations, telling people to take their children into school, to get their children vaccinated against the flu at school. You don't vaccinate a child against the flu. We never did. This is very recent. It's almost like, do we no longer have any faith, in our own creation? That weren't we made in the image of something that should be able to deal with flu? Do we need to keep sticking poisons in us? So I think if we have a little bit more faith in us and who made us and why we're here, then I don't think we need to be sticking things in our veins and certainly not with children. So it does align with what I was told. Again, I put it on my website. It's called the Marburg virus.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, its nickname is the zombie virus.
It's and like they're going Ebola, to do, right? It's like Ebola, right? Is it similar to Ebola?
No, it's actually similar to COVID. Sorry, here we call it Convid. So it's similar to that. So it's respiratory, but actually, it's just 5G. And they're going to do here what they did. Well, they're going to do across the world what they did in China, where in China they turned 100 5G masts on at exactly the same time, and that's why we saw people dropping in the street. They were all switched on at the same time at the correct frequency. So anybody who had the winter flu jab was immediately affected by that and were dropping in the street. They're going to be doing that. So that's what I was told. I put all the information again on my website about that. We'll just have to see. But this lady is she knows her stuff. She very well respected. And then of course, will we see World War III? I mean, it's a possibility. And then we've got the CIA claiming that in 2027 we're going to see an alien invasion, and this is the return of the Anunnaki. That's what the CIA is saying. Who knows? I think it'll be fake. I think it'll be staged. And then someone will appear as the savior and there'll be a false prophet. And I believe that will be Tony Blair.
Interesting. Very
the
interesting.
Antichrist, as I like to call him.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, at least we have some hope that maybe this is all going to come to an end in July when the little season is over, right? I mean,
In
there's
theory, or they're
there's
going to
gotta be,
celebrate, aren't they? But
yeah.
it'd be interesting because, I was told that 2032 is when this will be over by. But actually, if you think about it logically, I mean, your dollar bill has on the back of it New World Order, 1776, and the all-seeing eye above a pyramid. It's there. Your Statue of Liberty has it. With Lucifer's chain being broken free around the ankle. I mean, originally that statue's Apollo, and it was bastardized. It's actually an energy harnessing structure on an 11-pointed star fort. But they bastardized that. And if you look at the first M, it's out of alignment. They added the M to it and then added the chain around the ankle and took over that as well. And the cornerstone was laid by the Grand Master of the Masonic Lodge of New York. It got another one of their buildings now.
Wow. I never heard that. That's very interesting. And we know 1776 was when the Illuminati was founded, right? So
Adam did his thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it all kinds of, brings us to this.
Connects.
To this 250 year. Well, again, my faith is what keeps me going. Without that, I don't know how I would survive during these times. So I have faith that that this is going to come to an end. And based on their actions, I mean, every day there's some new law, there's some new thing that is designed to hurt us spiritually, hurt us physically, and just break us down. And I'm like, why would they go through all this trouble covering up all this information if there wasn't some deeper purpose behind it, like a spiritual purpose? It's not just about money. We know that. It's not just about depopulation. There's got to be some other reason why they're doing these things. So I think, but we'll see, right? We no one knows. If anyone tells you they know, then they're lying, because nobody knows really.
No, and that's it. And I always say the same thing to people. I won't dismiss what anybody says. I won't criticize anybody for their views. And I think that's the one thing. Obviously, being ordained and having studied the Bible for a very, very long time, the one thing I know is that the overriding message of it all is love. It's love of each other. It's being the good neighbor, the good Samaritan. It's certainly not condemning or ridiculing someone for their thoughts or beliefs. And if God is watching everything we do, he's watching what you just wrote in your comments. So practice what you preach, I think, is the answer. We've got to now unite. We've got to put our differences aside, and we've got to understand our own power that we have. And we are a loosh farm. It's our power that they're zapping, and we're spending far too much time arguing with each other. And look at the problems of different religions fighting. It's like football matches here in England, where at the end of the game, some people are just going to a football game, or soccer as you call it, to fight at the end. Over what? And ultimately we all kind of want the same thing. We just want to get on and be happy and be surrounded by people that we love and make sure everybody's well. Nothing else matters. Yeah. Nothing else. And that's why, it's interesting for me to have a Jewish mother, a Roman Catholic father, a Muslim wife, and they all get along.
That's
none
beautiful.
Of them.
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to. It shouldn't be a division. Your beliefs shouldn't be something that divides us. It should be something that is personal to you, that you don't ram down somebody else's throat. You keep it between you. Your relationship with your God is yours and yours alone. It's not for you to force upon somebody else.
Absolutely.
And I do find it interesting because occasionally the three of them will have a difference of opinion on something, but that's all it is. It never gets personal or nasty, because if he is watching, like I said a moment ago, he's watching what you just wrote. And if you believe what you're preaching, then you need to be thinking about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Guy, thank you again for coming back and doing a deep dive into the subject, which is again it does it's very important. It does have consequences. We
Mhm.
understand our past. Maybe we can change the future, or at
Yes,
least
we
go
can
in a
stop it
different
repeating.
direction. Yeah.
We've got
Um,
to stop history repeating itself. It does. We've got to stop that.
yeah. So thank you. I think this is a very important conversation to have. And tell people where to find you. I'm going to just hold up your book. I don't know if you can see that. Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. Highly recommend everyone buy this book. And like Guy says, buy the book. Don't get the digital, the digital version. Have books because we don't know if they're changing things, right? We don't know if the stuff we see online is the same. So I'm a big believer in actually having the actual book. And
Oh, wow.
this was your third book.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is
that's lovely.
Conspiracy Theories from Argatha to Zombies.
Hmm.
Excellent stuff, Guy. And where can they? What's your website again? And I'll have it up on the screen as well. But
Yeah, so it's the Tartarian Empire.co.uk. And the reason I went with .co.uk is because it's important people understand I'm in the UK. So if they're buying a book from my website, it's not going to turn up tomorrow. It's going to be a week, maybe 10 days before they see it. And, it's important people know where I am. Although, for me, I'm not in the UK. I live in England. But there we are.
right,
UK is just a corporation, and I'm not
right.
part of that. But as far as websites go, yeah, if I'd have put .com, people would just assume I'm in the States.
Yeah,
And I didn't want that because they're going to say, "Where's my order? I ordered it yesterday. Where is it?"
right.
It's got a pond to cross. Mm.
Yeah, and you're on YouTube as well.
Yeah, all links to everything are on my website, and there are blogs on there as well. So if anyone's interested in the former Chancellor of Germany, or they're interested in the Marburg virus or anything else, they can find blogs on there that contain information that I can't put on social media.
Okay, great. Well, Guy, again, thank you very much. I appreciate you
Pleasure.
spending this time with me. It's very, very enlightening, and I think people are going to really enjoy what we just talked about. Some amazing subjects there. Thank you again, Guy, and
Pleasure.
take care. And maybe I'll see you soon in the future. We should do this
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, and Happy New Year to everyone.
All right, Guy. Thank you very much. Take care and God bless.
And you.